Hey students, so this is a video to help with how Clarita likes to solve quadratics. We are going to be looking at a problem that is very, very similar to the one that is given so that you can then apply your understanding from this video to the exact problem within your project. So Clarita says that she likes to write the equation in factored form and then use the factors to find the solutions. So what she's saying is that she likes to solve this quadratic using factoring. So that's what we're going to look at. Here is my example. It's very similar to the one that is within your project. And we are going to be solving it using that factoring method that Clarita said that she likes to use. So first, with any factoring is that we want to make sure that it's written in the correct form. So I'm going to rewrite this by moving that 2 to the other side of the equation, or to that equal sign, and setting it equal to 0. So it always has to be equal to 0 to be able to factor. And then also we want to make sure that it's written in the correct form. That means that I have my x squared term, my x term, and then my constant. So now there's a lot of different ways and a lot of different methods that you can use for factoring, but they all have the same end result. Factors are saying, okay, what times what would really get me back to this quadratic. So I'm going to be thinking about using the FOIL method. So it's kind of like the anti-FOIL method, you might call it. So by that, I mean I'm going to be first looking at this first term. That 2x squared term. That 2x squared term within my factors comes from multiplying the first two terms together. So I'm saying what times what can get me a 2x squared? Well, I know 2x times 1x would get me a 2x squared. 2 times 1 would get me the 2, and then the x times the x is what's going to get me that x squared. Okay, and then now I'm trying to color code this for you. I'm gonna jump down to that -2. Don't forget your negatives. So if this is a minus in front of that 2, I'm gonna keep in mind that I'm thinking about a -2. So I'm thinking about what times what would get me a -2. Well, I know that 1 times 2 gets me 2, but I want a negative. So I want one of these guys to be a negative and one of these to be a positive. So -1 times a +2, that gets me that -2. So now I have my factors filled in, but I'm not entirely sure if that was the right way to fill them in. So to check this, we're going to check with this middle term, that 3x, and I'm going to multiply out my middle terms, or kind of like my middle and outside terms. So I have a -1 multiplying that with a +1x. So a negative times a positive becomes a negative. 1 times 1x, I'm left with a 1x. Okay? And then now I have a 2x multiplying that with this 2 over here. This gets me a 4x. And if I were to look here, I notice that they both have an x term. So they are both they're like terms. So I'm going to combine those like terms, adding them together. It's going to get me a 3x. Sorry, that's kind of a funky looking 3. So I have 3x. Hey, that's what I needed. I have my 3x. So what this means is that I have factored this correctly. So my two factors are now going to be, I'm going to erase this. Remember, this was just to check my work. Oop, not vibrations. Oh my goodness. You're like, this woman doesn't know what she's doing. That's partly true. Okay. So now I have my two factors. It's still equal to 0. So we are going to apply what is called the zero product property, which says if I have something multiplying with something that equals 0, the only way to multiply to 0 is that one of these somethings needs to be 0. So I'm going to pull them apart. So I have 2x minus 1 equaling 0, and I have x plus 2 equaling 0. I am now able to solve. So here I would add 1, 2x is equal to 1. Divide both sides by 2, and I get a fraction. Totally fine to leave it as a fraction. Fractions are your friend. They're just numbers. Don't hate them. Subtract 2, subtract 2. X is equal to -2. So those are my two solutions. So hopefully this video will help you within your project.